Everybody was expecting Donald Trump to go hard and on Zorhan Mamdani, but he didn't. It turned into a love fest. Remember Donald Trump used to call this guy a communist, a socialist, and all these different things. Well, Ali Velshi did a great job breaking down this sort of socialist thing. I want you to listen to this, and then I have something to say at the other side.
Today would have been a great day to have been watching Fox News. A lot of interesting stuff going on. The channel prepped its audience for Donald Trump's meeting with the New York mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani by saying it was going to be a showdown with socialism, a meeting in which capitalism and socialism would collide. Then after the meeting, a group of hand-picked conservative journalists at the White House asked Mamdani questions about communism and socialism, all while ignoring the guy in the Oval Office who's doing the actual socialism, Donald Trump. And I know how that sounds, but think about this for a second. While the right-wing press is up in arms about Mamdani's idea to have city-run grocery stores sell groceries at cost to New York's poorest, which, by the way, is something our government already does at military grocery stores, Trump is actually forcing private American companies to bend to the government's control. This summer, Donald Trump announced that the U.S. government was taking a 10% stake in the private tech company Intel in exchange for billions of dollars of government grants. That's the government starting to nationalize an entire industry, not a grocery store, an industry. And it's not just Intel. Under Trump, the federal government has acquired a 15% stake in a private rare earth mining company and what Trump calls the golden share of the Japan-based company Nippon Steel, which is now the parent company of U.S. Steel. That's all pretty socialist. And while the right-wing press seems to publish an infinite number of stories about how Mamdani will hurt free market capitalism so much that business people and the wealthy will be forced to flee New York City, Trump is actively undermining a global free market by tariffing countries willy-nilly. But there's a key difference between actual socialism and what Trump is doing to the American economy. Let me show you what I mean. Back in July, Donald Trump held what he called an AI summit, in which he announced an action plan for artificial intelligence. That plan directed Trump's Commerce Secretary, the billionaire Howard Lutnick, to mobilize federal agencies to provide government financing tools and subsidies for AI infrastructure. Even more significantly, Trump signed an executive order directing Lutnick to provide, quote, financial support such as loans, grants, and tax incentives, end quote, to promote the building of AI data centers. Now, I'll give you one guess as to what Howard Lutnick's family business is currently in the business of doing. If you guessed AI data centers, you'd be correct. Yesterday, the New York Times broke the story of how the Lutnick family business has completed more than $25 billion in data center deals in the past 12 months, billion with a B. And while Lutnick himself has divested from his companies, he passed the stake in them to his adult sons, one of whom just said last month that the family company involved in these data center deals is currently having its best year ever. I wonder why. Now, I should say that representatives from Mr. Lutnick's family business say that their deals are the result of relationships they had long before Lutnick became Trump's Commerce Secretary. And the White House said that, quote, the fact of the matter is that the only special interest guiding Secretary Lutnick's decision-making is the best interest of the American people. But this isn't a Lutnick problem. The son of Trump's Middle East envoy, Steve Witkoff, has been asking Middle East sovereign wealth funds to invest in their family business. Trump's Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, shepherded a $20 billion taxpayer bailout of Argentina. That just so happens to help a lot of his rich buddies. And Trump and his family have seen their own net worth skyrocket since he retook office, scoring all sorts of lucrative deals with people who want things from the U.S. government. Trump and his allies aren't just using the power of the federal government to control the U.S. economy, they're using that control to personally enrich themselves. That's not capitalist. That's not socialist. That's not communist. That's an oligarchy. The only question now is, how does anyone stop it?
So, whenever you talk to one of your friends who are completely bought into the perfection of capitalism, if you go ahead and say, we need to have a great social safety net, we need to have good social programs, etc., one of the first things that they'll say to you is, you are a communist or you are a socialist. All socialism brings is Cuba and Venezuela. And, sometimes they'll even use North Korea, right? The thing about it is, the type of socialism these people are talking about ain't socialism at all, ain't democratic socialism at all. In fact, I actually call it autocratic socialism. It's what you just saw of what Donald Trump and all his cronies. They put the government at the behest of companies. In other words, the government buys up some companies, etc., and then make deals to enrich themselves. That is what Trump is doing, and what autocrats like Trump does or do is exactly what effectively turns into what has happened to many of these other autocratic nations that the United States would like to blame their socialists on them. No. Look at Scandinavia. Look at other places where they know how to create a good social democratic state where capitalism isn't the ideology, but just a tool where it belongs. And that is what we need over here in the United States. Capitalism as a tool, not capitalism as an ideology. We have capitalism where it belongs. We have a social democracy where it belongs, etc., etc. Do remember, there's nothing democratic about capitalism. I know many have made that association. There's absolutely nothing democratic about capitalism, and that's why both China and the United States are the two largest capitalist states. Put that in your pipe, smoke it, think about it.
All of our country's problems, from polarization to ignorance on domestic and international issues to a complete misunderstanding of our economic and healthcare systems, are a direct result of a derelict mainstream media that too often bend over backwards to support corporate or bought politicians' wants as opposed to the people's needs for real information to make their lives better. Independent media is the only solution to inform truthfully and factually. Why? Because our loyalties are to you, the ones who fund us with small dollar contributions and subscriptions. Please consider supporting our independent media platforms by subscribing to our Egberto Off the Record newsletter at politicsdoneright.com/newsletter. Again, that is politicsdoneright.com/newsletter. It's an investment that pays incalculable dividends.